Lost Spring. Stories of Stolen Childhood. Anees Jung. About the author. Anees Jung. Indian writer and journalist, born 1964. Grew up in Hyderabad, educated in India and the USA. Comes from a literary family, both parents were writers. Worked as a columnist and editor for major national and international newspapers. Writes about poverty, inequality, child exploitation, and women's lives. Lost Spring is taken from her book Lost Spring: Stories of Stolen Childhood. In this book, she reveals how poverty and tradition trap children in lifelong exploitation. Why Lost Spring was written. The lesson is based on real-life encounters with poor children. Reveals how poverty forces them into child labor instead of school. Highlights two groups of children. Rag pickers in Seema Puri, Delhi outskirts. Bangle makers in Firozabad, Uttar Pradesh. Shows how poverty, tradition, and exploitation trap families for generations. Spring means childhood. Their childhood is lost before it begins. Saheb, the boy in the garbage dumps. Author meets Saheb, searching for gold in garbage every morning. He left his home in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Storms destroyed their fields and houses. The family migrated to Delhi. Now he survives by scrounging in garbage because he has no other option. His childhood is spent in waste dumps, not in school. Why Saheb cannot go to school. Author tells him, "Go to school." Saheb replies, "There is no school in my neighborhood." Author jokingly says, "If I start a school, will you come?" Saheb takes it seriously and asks later, "Is your school ready?" Shows. Poor children want education. But adults often make empty promises. And the poor believe these promises out of hope. Saheb's name and the irony behind it. Saheb's full name is Saheb-e-Alam, which means Lord of the Universe. He does not know the meaning of his own name. The name does not match his life. He is a poor barefoot rag picker. He roams the streets with other boys who appear like morning birds and disappear by noon. The contrast between his name and reality shows the harshness of his life. Barefoot boys, poverty or tradition. The author sees Saheb and his friends walking barefoot. When she asks why, one boy says his mother didn't bring the chapals down from the shelf. Another boy wears mismatched shoes but says nothing. A third child says, "I want shoes," though he has never owned a pair. The author wonders whether going barefoot is a tradition or just an excuse for poverty. The Udupi Temple Story, a contrast. The author remembers a story about a boy in Udupi who prayed daily for shoes. Years later, when she visits the same place, she sees a priest's son wearing socks and shoes. This shows how some children's prayers are answered over time. But many poor children still remain shoeless, like the rag pickers in her neighborhood. Highlights the inequality between children from different backgrounds. The journey to Seema Puri, where Saheb lives. Seema Puri is on the edge of Delhi, yet feels like a completely different world. People living there are squatters who came from Bangladesh in 1971. They settled in Seema Puri because they had nowhere else to go. The author goes to Seema Puri because of her growing connection with the barefoot rag pickers. This sets the scene for understanding Saheb's daily life and hardships. Life in Seema Puri. A world of poverty. Seema Puri was once a wilderness, and even today it remains extremely poor. People live in mud houses with tin or tarpaulin roofs. There is no sewage, no drainage, and no running water. About 10,000 ragpickers live here without official identity documents. They only have ration cards, which allow them to vote and buy grain. For them, food is more important than identity. Why they left Bangladesh. The mothers' voices. Families left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers because the fields gave them no grain. Storms destroyed their homes and crops. In Simapuri, wherever they find food, they settle and pitch their tents. Their shelters become transit homes, changing whenever needed. Their children grow up in these temporary homes, becoming partners in survival. In Simapuri, to survive means ragpicking. Garbage. A lifeline for Simapuri. Ragpicking has become a fine art over the years. Garbage is gold for them. It is their food, income, and shelter. For elders, garbage is a means of survival every day. For children like Saheb, garbage is full of wonder. Saheb says, "Sometimes I find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note." For children, garbage means hope, the chance to find something valuable. Saheb and the Tennis Club. A glimpse of another world. One winter morning, Saheb stands outside a fenced neighborhood club. He watches two young men playing tennis inside. Saheb says, "I like the game, happy just to watch from outside." He sometimes goes in when the gatekeeper lets him use the swing. Tennis represents a world of comfort and privilege that is far from his reach. The gifted shoes. A small joy for Saheb. Saheb is wearing tennis shoes, but they look odd with his worn clothes. Someone gave them to him. They belong to a rich boy who threw them away because they had a small hole. For a child who has walked barefoot all his life, even damaged shoes are a dream come true. Shows how the poor value things the rich often discard without a thought. Saheb's new job, freedom lost. Saheb now works at a tea stall, earning 800 Indian rupees a month plus meals. He carries a heavy steel canister to the milk booth. The canister feels heavier than the plastic bag he once carried lightly. Earlier, he was his own master as a ragpicker. Now, the canister belongs to the tea stall owner, and so does his time. His face has lost its carefree look, he has lost his childhood freedom. Firozabad. The town of bangles. Mukesh lives in Firozabad, a town famous for glass bangles. Almost every family here is involved in making bangles. People work around hot furnaces, melting glass and shaping bangles. Mukesh's family is one of the many families who have done this work for generations. Children also work in these workshops, even though it is illegal. Child labor in the glass industry. Children work in high temperatures, in small rooms with no ventilation. They handle hot glass and weld pieces together. Working long hours in this dim light often leads to loss of eyesight at an early age. The law prohibits children from working in such dangerous conditions, but the law is not enforced. About 20,000 children work in these furnaces, trapped in a cycle of poverty. Mukesh takes the author home. Mukesh proudly tells the author he will take her to his home. They walk through narrow, stinking lanes filled with garbage. Homes are crumbling, windowless, and overcrowded. Animals and humans live together in a primeval, primitive state. Mukesh lives in a half-built shack where his young sister-in-law cooks the family meal. Despite poverty, there is a sense of dignity and responsibility in the family. a family trapped in the bangle making trade. Mukesh's family has been making bangles for generations. His father has worked all his life, yet he cannot repair his own house. He cannot send his children to school. His father has gone blind from working in dark rooms with hot furnaces. This shows how the trade destroys health but brings no progress. Poverty and tradition trap the whole family in the same occupation. The painful reality of bangle makers. Many families sit together welding glass into colorful bangles. They work in high heat, breathing in glass dust. Years of working in these darkness-filled rooms cause eye damage and even blindness. The author sees boys who have lost their eyesight even before adulthood. Irony: bangles are worn for happiness and marriage, but the makers live in misery. Poverty leaves no choice. Families cannot afford to stop working, even for a day. They earn so little that they can barely buy food. Parents pass down the same job to their children because they have no savings, they have no education, they know no other skill. The author feels sad seeing children growing up without play, school, or freedom. Poverty forces them to accept a life they never chose. A harsh cycle of exploitation. The bangle makers of Firozabad live in two types of poverty. Poverty of money. Poverty of willpower. They are trapped in a system controlled by sahukas, moneylenders, middlemen, policemen, bureaucrats, politicians. These powerful groups work together to keep workers helpless. Anyone who tries to organize a group to demand better pay is beaten and jailed. This keeps the poor silent and trapped. The burden passed down to children. Children inherit the family debt and the family trade. They start working very young and know no other life. The author meets a small boy who has worked in the glass industry since he was 4 years old. He has never been to school and doesn't even know what a school looks like. Childhood is lost in the heat of the furnaces and the darkness of small rooms. Their world is limited to bangles, hot furnaces, darkness, and fear of losing eyesight. A childhood stolen before it begins. Instead of playing or studying, children spend their days soldering pieces of glass. They grow up inside rooms filled with dust, heat, and lack of fresh air. Their backs bend, their eyes weaken, their spirits die young. The author calls it a stolen childhood because children never get a chance to be children. The cycle continues because the poor believe this is our fate. This is our destiny. Mukesh's dream. A motor mechanic. Unlike other children, Mukesh has a dream. He wants to become a motor mechanic. He is determined and confident. He says, "I will be a motor mechanic. I will learn to drive a car." His dream is small compared to what rich children imagine, but in Firozabad, even this small dream is rare and courageous. Breaking free from tradition. Mukesh is one of the few children who want to break away from the bangle making trade. He is ready to walk a long distance to the garage where he wants to learn. The author admires his willingness to try, even without support. His dream represents a ray of hope in a town where most children lose hope early. Mukesh is different because he has the courage to choose his future. A small dream in a difficult world. Mukesh's dream is simple and realistic, not impossible. But his environment is full of poverty, weak eyesight, unhealthy working conditions, and traditional beliefs. The author knows it will be difficult, but not impossible, for Mukesh. Mukesh's determination shows that even in darkness, dreams can survive. The belief that traps families. Mukesh's grandmother believes deeply in Karam, destiny. She says, "We were born in the bangle maker's caste, it is our destiny to work like this." This belief keeps the family tied to the same work for generations. No one imagines a life outside bangle making. Tradition becomes a chain that stops people from dreaming big. The author realizes that it is this mindset that strengthens the cycle of poverty. The women of Firozabad, silent sufferers. Women sit all day sorting and soldering bangles. They work in dark rooms until their eyesight fails. Their lives are filled with endless work, no rest, no education, and no independence. They accept suffering as normals because they have never known another life. The author sees that both men and women are victims of a cruel, unfair system. Mukesh's hope. A rare light in the darkness. Even in a town where almost everyone is trapped, Mukesh chooses hope. He wants to become a mechanic, not a bangle maker. The author believes Mukesh might succeed because he has courage, he has clarity, and he is willing to work hard. The lesson ends on a hopeful note. The spring of Mukesh's life is not yet lost. Moral of Lost Spring. Childhood should be a time of learning, playing, and dreaming, not labor. Society often ignores the suffering of poor children. Poverty forces children into dangerous work, stealing their childhood. Education is the only way to break the cycle of poverty. Every child deserves freedom, dignity, and opportunities. We all share a responsibility to speak against exploitation and injustice. Message of Lost Spring. The author urges us to notice and care about the invisible children around us. Children like Saheb and Mukesh show that dreams exist everywhere. Their dreams die early because of poverty, tradition, and exploitation. The lesson calls for better education, fair wages, removal of child labor, government responsibility, and social awareness. Real change begins when society refuses to accept child labor as normal. Change begins when we notice injustice, speak against exploitation, support education, and provide opportunities. The author urges us to build a society where no child is forced to work, and where every child can dream freely. Themes of the lesson. Theme 1. Loss of childhood, stolen spring. Explanation. Spring symbolizes childhood, a time of joy and freedom. Poor children in Simapuri and Firozabad lose their childhood to survival and labor. Examples from the lesson. Saheb picks rags instead of going to school. Children in Firozabad work in glass furnaces from a very young age. A boy who has worked since age 4 doesn't even know what a school is. Theme 2. Poverty as a trap. Explanation. Poverty forces families to make choices that destroy education and childhood. Survival becomes more important than identity or dreams. Examples from the lesson. Simapuri residents prefer ration cards over ID cards because food is more important than identity. Ragpicking is the only way children in Simapuri can find money. Families live in mud houses without sanitation, water, or basic facilities. Theme 3. A system that exploits the poor. Explanation. Powerful groups keep poor workers weak, scared, and dependent. Children remain trapped in dangerous work because the system offers no escape. Examples. Firozabad bangle makers are controlled by sahukas, middlemen, police, bureaucrats, politicians. Anyone who tries to protest is beaten and jailed. Children work near hot furnaces that often damage their eyesight permanently. Theme 4: Burden of family tradition. Explanation. The tradition of bangle making has been passed down for generations. Families believe it is their jikaram, destiny, and cannot be changed. Tradition becomes a prison for the poor. Examples. Mukesh's grandmother says the family has done this work for generations. Even the father, who has gone blind, cannot leave the trade. Children automatically enter the same work without choice. Theme 5: Dreams in Darkness. Explanation. Despite poverty, some children still dream of a better future. Dreams are small but powerful. They show the human desire to rise. Examples. Saheb dreams of going to school, but the school does not exist. He hopes to find coins or notes in garbage. Mukesh dreams of becoming a motor mechanic, showing determination to break free. Theme 6: Harsh ironies exposed. Explanation. Irony highlights the contrast between appearance and reality. Examples. Saheb's name means Lord of the Universe, but he is a barefoot ragpicker. Bangles represent happiness and marriage, yet their makers live in misery. Rich children play tennis while Saheb watches from outside the fence. A rich boy throws away shoes with a hole, Saheb treasures them. Character sketch of Saheb. Saheb. A boy with a lost spring. Key traits. Cheerful, innocent, full of hope. Migrant from Dhaka, forced into rag picking. Lives in Simapuri with no school, no resources. Curious and eager to learn. Loves watching tennis, represents his unreachable dreams. Loses freedom when he takes up a job at a tea stall. Symbol of millions of poor children with stolen childhoods. Character sketch of Mukesh. Mukesh, the boy who dares to dream. Key traits. Belongs to a bangle-making family in Firozabad. Lives in poverty, surrounded by dust, heat, and dim workshops. Unlike others, he has a dream to be a motor mechanic. Determined, courageous, ready to walk long distances to learn. Represents hope in a place where most children feel hopeless. His small dream is a fight against tradition, poverty, and exploitation. Character sketch of Mukesh's family. Mukesh's family, bound by destiny. Key traits. Entire family works in bangle making for generations. Father has spent his life welding glass, now blind. Mother accepts poverty as their fate, Karam. Young sister-in-law cooks, manages house in poor conditions. Symbol of poverty that passes from one generation to the next. Character sketch of the author. Anees Jung. Observer and voice of the marginalized. Key traits. Sensitive, empathetic journalist. Observes children closely and records their real lives. Highlights injustice, inequality, and lost childhoods. Her tone is compassionate, questioning, and socially aware. She becomes a voice for forgotten children. Lost Spring exposes the harsh reality of millions of children whose childhood is stolen by poverty and exploitation. Through Saheb and Mukesh, the chapter shows how poverty limits choices. Society ignores injustice. Yet children continue to dream. The lesson urges us to reflect on our role in society and to support education, equality, and child rights. As we end this presentation, remember every child deserves a spring, a childhood full of hope, freedom, and opportunities.